They said that they had totally annihilated it. That came from the president of the United States. He went on a PR tour telling us he annihilated something he absolutely did not.
You think
they
that
didn't
Iran
wake up one morning and all of a sudden rebuild their entire nuclear capacity.
You believe that Iran right now is exactly as powerful as they were?
I never said that.
All right, everybody, welcome back in. Grab a seat because this panel got heated fast. Here is what you are walking into. Fresh intelligence reporting says a rebuilding effort is running way ahead of every timeline the intel community projected, while the commander of Central Command told lawmakers the exact opposite just days earlier. Charles Blow and another panelist take that gap and run straight at it, and Ben Ferguson and Caroline Downey are not having any of it. What follows is one of those exchanges where somebody accidentally argues both sides of their own point on live television. Stick around through the back half of this one, because the moment everything unravels does not happen where you would expect it to. And do me a favor while you are here, drop a comment and let me know what city or country you are watching from. I genuinely love seeing how far this thing travels. All right, let us get into it.
Recent U.S. intel assessments actually assess that Iran is rebuilding its military industrial capacity at a much faster rate than previously anticipated. One U.S. official actually told us that, quote, the Iranians have exceeded all timelines the intel community had for reconstitution of their military capabilities. And one big example of that is how fast they have been able to rebuild their drone program. They have restarted that program, we're told. They have already been able to produce a lot of new drones, and their drone program could actually be fully reconstituted, we are told, within 6 months. And that's worth noting as well, because of course those drones pose a huge threat to Iran's regional adversaries, many of which are U.S. allies. They have proven to be extremely lethal, these drones. One of these drone attacks actually hit a U.S. military facility early in the conflict and killed U.S. service members. So the drones do pose a huge threat. And even prior to them reconstituting their drone program, they still had thousands of one-way attack drones still in their inventory. So this is just adding to that. In addition to this, they are also able to, we are told, rebuild, and they have been reconstituting their bombed out missile sites that the U.S. did attack, of course, throughout the course of the war, as well as with their missile launchers, many of which were buried underground, that they have now been able to dig out and produce more of. And the reason for this is multifaceted. Part of it is that Russia and China, we're told, have continued to provide assistance to the Iranians. The Chinese have continued, for example, to provide missile components to the Iranians throughout the course of the war, something that Beijing denies, but that U.S. intelligence has seen very clearly. And the Russians, of course, have continued to provide dual-use technology, drone tactic advice as well to the Iranians that has allowed them to continue to produce and manufacture a lot of this equipment. So bottom line here is that while U.S. Central Command Chief Brad Cooper testified to lawmakers earlier this week that Iran's military industrial capacity will take them years to rebuild, in fact, it's only been set back by a matter of months, according to U.S. intel assessments.
The reason Netanyahu is furious is because he knows Trump is going to walk away. And Israel will be in more danger. That's the end of the Abraham Accords. And Israel is going to be in more danger than ever before because Trump doesn't have the stomach for it. It was a blunder to begin with. And it's the only choice is go in there. They're not going to get the AGU.
How can you say that Israel is fearing of a basically rebounding Iran when it's a shell?
Because they're watching it happen right now.
It's a shell of its former self.
What are you talking about?
Don't take it from Trump. Don't take it from Trump. Take it from the commander of CENTCOM, Admiral Cooper, who testified to doubt the report that we are talking about right now because it's provided by one of these sources.
Stuff that got blown up.
Facts on the ground show us that Trump has been lying.
Okay, hang on. Before we go to that,
the Navy was 50 years old and
I want to play a clip. Caroline mentioned Brad Cooper. This is what he said on Tuesday.
Operation Epic Fury significantly degraded Iran's ballistic missiles and drones while destroying 90% of their defense industrial base, ensuring that Iran cannot reconstitute for years.
This is the part that should stop everybody cold, and it has nothing to do with the yelling that comes later. It is the reporting itself. Natasha Bertrand reported this. A U.S. official told them the Iranians have exceeded all timelines the intel community had for reconstitution of their military capabilities. Exceeded all of them. Not one, not most, all of them. That is not a small correction to a forecast. That is the entire forecast being wrong, and the forecast is what the case for this whole operation was built on. And here is what people do not realize. The reporting also stated the drone program could be fully reconstituted within 6 months. 6 months. You have to sit with that number, because 6 months is not a setback. 6 months is a scheduling delay. Let me break down why this matters. You can flatten a building. You cannot flatten the engineers who designed what was inside it. After the Second World War, the United States commissioned its own strategic bombing survey, and the finding that came back was uncomfortable for everyone who had promised fast results. German war production kept climbing deep into 1944, in the middle of the heaviest bombing campaign anyone had ever attempted. Not because the bombs missed, because industrial knowledge lives in people, and people scatter, regroup, and start over. That lesson is 80 years old, it is documented, and somehow it gets forgotten every single time. So when it is reported that the timeline has only been set back by a matter of months according to US intel assessments, and then you hear Admiral Brad Cooper testify that Iran cannot reconstitute for years, that is not two people quibbling over details. That is the public being handed one story, while the people actually reading the assessments are writing down a completely different one. And the gap between those two stories was not free. Somebody paid for those months. American service members paid for those months. That is the real ledger here, and nobody on that panel wants to open it.
Okay, so that is what you're referring to, and that's what we're hearing from Admiral Brad Cooper, who is the commander of U.S. Central Command. But this reporting that CNN has from intelligence officials and U.S. officials saying that the Iranians have exceeded all timelines and are, in fact, rebuilding.
Well, of course they're going to rebuild. That's what, I mean, why would they not try? But I do think it's interesting you act like this is a massive failure blunder, because you said they're in control. The top level guys are all dead, so they're not in control.
You're talking about the regime.
Hold on.
Ask the Iranians if they've had regime change.
The second level, they're all dead, so they're not in charge of anything.
So
the third level has been killed.
Yeah,
so
that's a lie.
No, it's not.
With all of those,
so now we're at the fourth and the fifth level, and now you're saying this has been a disaster.
Who controls
it's not
the Strait of Hormuz?
Again, I think the U.S. is clearly letting this.
Ask the Japanese.
So you think that Iran is in charge of everything over there, and we're somehow losers because you don't like Donald Trump?
Tehran? Who's doing
deals? Are they
doing
deals? Are they having conversations? There's a big difference.
They're desperate because this is
the part that makes me laugh about there's so much oil over there right now that is held back. They're desperate to sell in that part of the world because of what's happened in the Strait, number one. So they're not in control, because they were. That would be free flowing.
Why are they doing side agreements with Iran?
Because they're desperate to get rid of capacity. They're trying to do anything to get some cash coming in. And if everything is in control the way you are, you don't have to do side deals. You would just have it open and flow like it was before the war.
It's like a toll road.
But that's the point about the president. The president made it clear. Iran is not going to get a nuclear weapon. That's number one.
How is he going to ensure that?
Number two.
How is he going to ensure that?
He said he's made
inspections?
As long as he's president of the United States of America, I have no doubt if he needs to bomb them again,
Where's
he's
the highly
going to
enriched
bomb
uranium
them
right
again.
now?
I go back to what I just said.
That's just the raw materials,
That's raw
but
material.
the capacity has been decimated, and that takes a long time to rebuild.
Do you really believe that Iran is sitting back right now, 5 levels deep of dead guys, and going, man, we're really in charge right now? Like, we are kicking America's AWS.
I absolutely think that they are. Because that is what they're doing on the ground.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that?
Because every bit of capability or intel that we've had has proven itself to be faulty. And that's either because there is a miscommunication or somebody's straight line. At the end of the day, we're spending $1 billion plus a day at war that we are losing.
Where faulty, everything's been faulty. Give me an example of that.
We said they knocked out their missile capacity. They have 70% still.
They said that they had totally annihilated it. That came from the president of the United States. He went on a PR tour telling us he annihilated something he absolutely did not.
You think
they didn't wake up one morning and all of a sudden rebuild their entire nuclear capacity.
You believe that Iran right now is exactly as powerful as they were?
I never said that. What I said was that they are not.
In some ways, strategically, they're more powerful because now they know they can charge a toll for every ounce of oil that comes out of the place where God made all the dinosaurs die and all the oil is.
Okay, hold on.
So they're going to make money to rebuild their nuclear program.
And Trump right now is thinking about how he's going to walk away from this.
You're making
someone that has no military and someone that has no air force and someone that has no boats in the water that are large in any capacity as a Navy.
The Navy was
Okay, so you're saying a regime that has a joke of a Navy is now more powerful than the U.S.
Has 70% of its missile launches.
Also,
That's
I want to let
Hang on,
we haven't heard from Charles. We haven't heard from Charles.
That's a new spin.
Ask
Go
Qatar
ahead,
how
Charles.
the missile capacity
Yes.
of Iran affects
So I would
oil
say,
in the world.
first of all, I'm going to be deaf in this ear by the time Ben is finished with all this yelling.
And right on cue, watch how fast the goalpost moves. Ben Ferguson said this: well, of course they are going to rebuild. Why would they not try? Of course, of course. Suddenly it is obvious. Suddenly it was always expected. That was never the pitch. The pitch was that this ends the problem. And the second the reporting says otherwise, the answer becomes a shrug. This is the part that blows my mind. Caroline Downey said the raw material has been decimated, and that takes a long time. Okay, how long? Because the people whose entire job is measuring exactly that already answered the question. And the answer was months. When your own intelligence community hands you a number and you decide you prefer a feeling, you are not making an argument anymore. Then one of the panelists puts the actual figure on the table. The missile capacity was supposedly knocked out, and 70% of it is still sitting there. And he finishes the thought, pointing out that a total annihilation was announced, that there was a public victory tour built around it, and that it absolutely did not happen. That is the whole thing in one exchange. Not an opinion, a number, against a press release. You have to understand what that does to everyone downstream. Allies plan around those claims. Families of deployed troops plan around those claims. Lawmakers vote on those claims. And when the claim turns out to be a mood instead of a measurement, the people who absorb the cost are never the people who made it. And the leverage nobody wanted to touch is the exact one that same panelist raised, that a country sitting on that waterway can charge a toll on every ounce of oil moving through it. That is not military strength. That is geography. And geography does not get destroyed. You can dominate every exchange in the air and still leave somebody holding a grip on the global economy. And calling that a finished job is how you end up right back there in 2 years.
Go get your good doctor. You're fine.
It is ridiculous. But the problem here is that what the battle, another battle on the planet that's showing us right now, which is between Ukraine and Russia, is showing you is that might doesn't always do it. We have reporting now that Ukraine, not only have they held out for this long a period of time, they are now making advances. And the big power can get tired. They don't have enough, they can't recruit enough. They don't have the same skin in the game as a person who is a country that's trying to survive. And what you have with Iran is a country that's trying to survive.
In the experts I talk to, they talk a lot about asymmetrical warfare. And that's something I've had to learn about as not a military expert, but just it's a different playing field than what the U.S. has been used to in the past.
Especially if you have a president you've bombed 10 countries before, you now have an eye on Cuba. Your attention span is not even there.
He's right. He's right that this is a regime that is flailing. They are desperate for survival, so much so that they are executing its own citizens, protesters in the streets in the thousands because they're crashing out that badly. But they're totally in control. Listen,
that's not the same.
They're teetering.
You were right up to a point.
You're right that they haven't.
You were right up to a point. I was agreeing with you up to a point when you were saying that they are horrible people. That doesn't make the leap between and they're also in total control. That's not what they need to be.
The only thing they understand is force.
They don't need to be in total control.
The only thing they understand is force.
All they have to do is to survive. For them, winning is survival. That's all.
So therefore, America does nothing.
The Ayatollah is dead. The Ayatollah's son probably is dead. So now we have the Revolutionary Guard in place.
Do you understand how voids work? You understand how power voids work? You kill someone, a worse person very likely goes into the void.
You're making a good case for regime change. That's what you're doing right now.
He's making a better one than Donald Trump did.
I'm making a case because Donald Trump made no case. Still hasn't made a case for anything.
It still is true that the regime is very neutered in its current form and that Israel is breathing a sigh of relief.
How do you know that it's neutered? I'm very curious as to how you know.
Because we know that the Navy has been basically obliterated. The Air Force is zero.
This is at the regime. I'm not talking about the military.
Well, the military apparatus, I mean, it's minimal now. Most of the leadership is gone.
You said the regime is neutered. I'm very curious as to how you can verify that the regime...
Because they keep killing its leaders.
They keep killing the first, second, third, and fourth ones in charge.
That's the only layer of the regime. The regime has multiple tentacles.
So then how are they still in control of the straight raw news?
We got to call it.
That's the only piece of leverage they have. Yeah.
Well, so who is it then? You said they killed everybody, so who's in control?
Not everybody, but they certainly are. They're going after one by one. The Revolutionary Guard is in control, which has always been, by the way, an appendage of the regime. But nonetheless,
so they're in control. You just said that they're not in control.
Okay, all right.
You make no sense.
Are not
Charles Blow makes the point nobody on that stage was ready for, and it lands because it is not even really about that region. He brings up what is happening between Ukraine and Russia to show that might does not always do it, and that is the sentence the entire panel walks straight past. The bigger army has been the favorite in every prediction for years, and the smaller side is still standing. Size predicts far less than people want it to. Here is the part that reframes everything. Charles Blow said this: "For them, winning is survival. That is all." Read that again. If your opponent only has to still exist when the smoke clears, then every strike you land is being graded against a bar you did not set. You are playing for collapse. They are playing for next Tuesday. Those are not the same game, and only one side gets to announce the score. And then the void argument, which is the one I keep coming back to. Charles Blow points out that when you take someone out, a worse person very likely fills the space. That is not a talking point. That is a pattern that has repeated in basically every place it has been attempted. Remove the top of a structure and something harder, angrier, and far less interested in sitting at a table grows in its place. We have watched that exact sequence play out in more than one country this century, and we keep buying tickets to the sequel. And then the moment the whole segment was building toward, after all that insistence that the leadership is gone, that the first, the second, the third, and the fourth in charge have all been eliminated, Caroline Downey says the Revolutionary Guard is in control, which has always been an appendage of the regime. In control. So which is it, decapitated or commanded? You cannot hold both of those in the same hand. That is not losing a debate. That is an argument dissolving in real time on live television. And what gets me is that none of this is a defense of anyone holding power over there. Nobody with sense is defending a government that treats its own people in the streets the way that one does. The question on the table was never whether they are bad. The question is whether the strategy did what the public was promised it did. And the honest answer is that it bought a few months, it cost real lives, and it left the leverage sitting exactly where it started. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.